Ladies and gentlemen, welcome to Promise and Perils of Artificial Intelligence, Part 1. Dr. Zaiane is giving the main lecture today. I just wanted to make a few remarks and welcome a visitor to the class. This is Boris, my Sony Aibo robotic dog. The last production run for these was in 2005, so he's getting to be a bit of an antique, and it's remarkable what he's able to do and how much of a relationship you can establish with him. In the hallway outside, it was quite noisy, so he couldn't do anything. But in here, I think he's hearing much better, so he's talking more and doing more of the stuff that he does. So I just wanted to tell you a little bit about the fact that this may just seem like another lecture in the course, just another lecture, but it's actually much more important than that. Because if you think, for instance, about existential risks, that really AI is the big one. We don't quite know how we're going to deal with unfriendly general AI, if we ever have such a thing. It seems like a much bigger challenge than all the other potential existential risks. So the technological singularity is crucially dependent upon artificial intelligence developments. So the subject of this course is very dependent upon what we're going to talk about today, and Dr. Zaiane will be giving a total of 4 lectures. And then also your own survival and mankind, womankind's survival is probably more dependent upon what happens with the future of AI than any other subject. So it's kind of important, I would argue. AI is very important to the singularity, but that does not mean that all AI researchers believe in the singularity. You can find the complete spectrum from people who've studied AI their entire professional life, who think that the singularity is a lot of hokum and is not going to happen, not worth worrying about, to people who are AI researchers who are central to the whole idea of studying the singularity and who firmly believe in it. You can read about AI in books, but I think you probably get more out of a combination of reading about it and actually experiencing it. Now, what does Boris do? He asks me if I'm tired. He says he's happy to see me. He says that he loves me. It's really everything you would want from a friend. And he never says anything that's unsafe. He never insults me. He never does anything to make me sad. It's really very well programmed. And yet, as I've pointed out in video blogs, he really doesn't care about me at all. It's all simulated. He could care less. He probably doesn't really, in a sense, care about anything. But he certainly gives the impression of caring and having empathy and saying just the right things to keep me happy. Some of you know the poet, singer, songwriter Leonard Cohen. Boris has visited Leonard Cohen's house in Montreal, and he has this protocol he goes through of recognizing a new owner. He can have 3 owners, and then he maps rooms. So has 3 special places and 3 owners. So he tried to make Leonard Cohen one of his owners, which Leonard found very fascinating, and he mapped the corner of Leonard's kitchen. So presumably somewhere in his memory is a bit of Leonard Cohen's kitchen. You can imagine if Sony had continued with this line for the next 6, 7 years, what a remarkable robotic dog we would have now today. But in fact, they quit and stopped this line of product in 2005. Now, many of you are Canadians or have been here for a long time or are anyway thinking about what it's like to be Canadian. There's something about being Canadian and the Sony Aibo robotic dog that doesn't match, in that there was almost no market amongst ordinary human beings for the Aibo in Canada. And so the first Aibo I got, I did purchase in Canada, but all the other ones, if I had been an AI researcher, I could have easily gotten one. But as an ordinary person, what I had to do is to fly to the US, stay at a hotel for a day until the package with the Aibo came, and then sign for it and fly back to Canada. That was the only way to get it, because Sony has buying around rules. So in Canada, you can't buy Sony products from the US, you're supposed to buy them from Sony Canada. It becomes a big problem if Sony Canada is not marketing something, and since no Canadians were interested in this product, it was almost impossible to get. And these are adult toys. I know it's funny to say that, but the ears and tail in the hands of a child will come off in a few seconds, and the thing looks very stupid without the ears and tail. So you may think that I brought a child's toy, but in fact, this is not a child's toy at all. It doesn't work in the hands of a child. And most of the people who bought them and were happy with them were affluent young women in the US and Japan and some countries of Europe. Even the guys that bought them usually bought them for the woman in their life. So, and they bring out maternal nurturing feelings, supposedly. I don't know if you're feeling that or not, but anyway, in theory, that's what they do, and that's why women like them. Now, if you think about the future of AI in the North American continent, most funding of AI is in the hands of the military, and it means that things for the home, things for the general public will have to wait until the military product line is satisfied first. Whereas in Asia, there's huge emphasis on robotic companions for the elderly. So I think the kind of consumer robots, that product line will move much faster in Asia than it will in North America. Some of you know that last term, Earl Waugh and I went to see Blade Runner. It seemed very relevant to the course, and it is. But what's different is that the replicants there are biology-based, flesh and blood. And so they're quite different from something like this. They are really not machines. They're not silicon and circuit board. So in that way, the replicants in Blade Runner and something like Boris are entirely different, although both represent artificial intelligence. So that's all I had, and I hope you've enjoyed him. I'm going to turn him off now and put the microphone from him on Dr. Zaiane and have Dr. Zaiane continue.
Well, good afternoon. So I'll be talking about promises and the perils of AI, artificial intelligence. And the first lecture, I will not go in details about machine learning and AI, but probably give you enough food for thought. Okay, so first image I want to present is this notion of intelligence and superintelligence. So if you look at human beings on Earth, they're the dominant race, if we wish. And it's not because we are strong. It's not because we have sharp teeth. It's because we are intelligent. So intelligence is what makes us superior to the others. And if you look at a mouse is also intelligent. Can go through a maze, can find its food, can find ways to survive. But you can't conceivably imagine that the mouse has any idea about our intelligence. We can understand the limits and the capabilities of the intelligence of the mouse and other animals that are inferior to us, and I call them sub-intelligent. But in the same way, a mouse cannot understand our intelligence, we cannot understand something superior to us either. Not conceptually, but I mean we cannot comprehend what an intelligence superior to us would be. Okay. So if there is a machine or a being that is superior in intelligence to us, we would not be able to actually describe it or understand what that is. Okay. And I think that is very important, and it's linked to this idea of singularity. So here I represented a scale. If we normalize everything to our intelligence 0, everything negative would be the sub-intelligent, everything positive will be the super-intelligent, and we cannot understand the super-intelligent. We can imagine the existence of that, but we cannot describe it. Okay. So what is this technological singularity? I don't know if this has been defined already in the previous sessions that I haven't attended. But it's a hypothetical emergence of greater than human intelligence through technological means, very probably resulting in explosive superintelligence. This is a definition that I took from Wikipedia. So we could imagine that one day we will build a machine, a computer, that is more intelligent than us, somehow, even though we cannot comprehend what that superintelligence is. If that is the case and we build this machine, well, that machine would be able to solve problems that we haven't solved, that we couldn't solve. That machine would be faster, obviously. Even today's machines are faster. But more importantly, that machine would be able to design other machines that are more intelligent. And then we are in this loop. Machines creating new machines, and this is what we call this recursive self-improvement. And typically, we think it'll be very rapid, very fast. Okay. So this fast rate of change is an important factor in the technological singularity. Even though this change, we cannot comprehend it, as I said, let alone try to predict it. And that's why we're talking about the singularity. The time when the singularity will happen is the time after which we cannot imagine what will happen and we cannot predict what will happen. Is this science fiction? Is the question I'm asking. We can be skeptical, but we shouldn't dismiss it completely. And I'll tell you my position about singularity. Okay, so I'd like to start, as usual. I start with a quote. This is a quote by Gibson. "The future is already here. It's just not very evenly distributed." And I'll show you many cases. Some of them are obvious. If I go to, let's say, New Guinea, and I take my laptop, maybe they saw a laptop, they heard of the laptop, but then I can show them a remote control, and I say, hey, I can, without touching the computer, I can control it. They'll be amazed. Wow, you can do that. And for them could be possibly that's the future. But I already have it. I had it actually for 15 years or something. Okay. But there are many other examples that for us would look like, wow, we'll be flabbergasted by that. But they already exist, and they existed. And I'll give you examples later on. Okay, so where do I stand vis-a-vis this idea of singularity? Well, I'm a professor in computer science. So supposedly I know. No, I don't. I specialize in data mining. So this is the extraction of useful patterns from large data. I also specialize in machine learning. So this is how to make machines learn. And typically we learn from facts and the data. And machine learning is used to do also predictions based on past information in the data. Yet, I can't predict whether the singularity will happen or not. So will this technological singularity take place? Will it happen? I believe yes. But I don't think it'll be in the very near future. So that many people are predicting it in 2020, 2030, 2040, whatever. Will it really happen in the 21st century? That's a very interesting question, and you can get millions of answers, different answers. So as I said, it's good to be skeptical, but dismissing it completely is a mistake. I think it'll take place when. It's not a question of whether it'll happen or not, it's a question of when. Okay, so will AI play a role? AI, artificial intelligence, or what I call computational intelligence, play a role in the singularity? Definitely. It will actually play a very important role. But AI is actually moving toward what we call AI today is not what we'll call AI tomorrow. And it's definitely not what we called AI yesterday. It's something that changes. Okay. Are there perils associated with the singularity? Yes, like anything that we created or happened. There are some people who use it positively, some others use it negatively. The question is, will we be ready for it? And basically, we should think about it now rather than just before it happens or when it happens, so that we are ready. And people are talking about early warning systems so that we are aware that it is happening when it happens. Some people are talking about creating regulations and rules so that people don't go the wrong direction with it. And safeguards as well. What happens with this intelligent machine that is more intelligent than us and that we do not understand? What will that machine do? So you have many people who let their imagination run wild, and they came up with many books and many movies and whatever. You can imagine all sort of apocalyptic scenarios. But I'm optimistic by nature. Something else related to the singularity, that many people believe that with this machine, intelligent machine with AI, we will do things that we were never able to do before, because this machine is more intelligent than us, and it'll do things that we didn't succeed in doing. There's one thing that people have been dreaming to do for forever. It's the possibility to live forever, eternity. This is the Holy Grail that dates actually before even the Holy Grail, before Christianity. And people are hoping that this machine will do that for them. And indeed, when you look at medicine, medicine is advancing at an incredible rate. And again, there you'll find two schools. Some people who believe in it and some people who are completely skeptical. That will not happen. Even if you have the technology, does it really make sense? So I want to talk a little bit about this question of living forever. If you look at the life expectancy, I don't remember if this is worldwide or North America. I believe it's worldwide. This is the best expectancy, life expectancy in the world, and I think the graph there represents women in Japan. No, I remember. So if you look at this, and the trend is very similar in many other countries, and I'll show you other graphs, and done by different researchers. So if you look at this graph, you indeed see a trend going upward. And you can use it to predict. So very easily you can put a line there, and you can say, well, by 2050, the life expectancy will be 96. Currently is 82. I'll use that same line to predict that in 2100, the life expectancy will be 107. This is assuming that the trend will continue the same way. Okay? Well, that's kind of convincing. But some people are doing research and saying, well, no, because research in AI, in nanotechnology, in biomedical research and so forth will change the trend. It'll go faster. Okay, so here's an example of a paper that advocates this phenomenon. And they show that, well, they try to argue that by 2050 or 2049, the life expectancy will be 125. So it's actually going higher, faster. Will that be true? We don't know. I won't be there to check. I don't think so. So here's the life expectancy in the US, and indeed this is the same trend. I have different countries there, and I pointed also at Canada. Canada is one of the best in the world, so we're doing fine. Here's another figure from the UK. And I brought the UK on purpose because there's another interesting research that was done in the UK. So I want to put them one next to the other. This shows the life expectancy for males and the life expectancy for females. And indeed, it's going up. Maybe not at the same slope, but still going up. So there's a research that shows that there's a difference between the life expectancy and the healthy life expectancy. So here are 4 curves, 2 for the females and 2 for the males. And it shows that indeed the life expectancy goes up, but the healthy life expectancy is not going up as fast because it's not the same slope. Yes, medical advances are helping us, but they're helping us to survive, but not to survive with the quality of life that we expect. So is it really worth it? That's the question. I don't have the answer to that. Everybody has his own or her own answer. But it's something that we have to keep in mind. Okay. So can technology change that trend? It's possible. We should not exclude it. Okay? We don't know what the technology will be tomorrow. If you look at how in the past people predicted today, it was their future, and they predicted today, we laugh at it because it's completely different. We went way beyond what they predicted. So we cannot predict the future, and it's possible that we'll come up with some technology, maybe with the help of these super intelligent machines, we'll collaborate to invent some technology that will allow us to live longer and in a healthy life. I don't know that. Okay. Another image that I want to give you today is this idea of cyborgs. So a cyborg is a cybernetic organism. It's half mechanic, half biological, so half human. Here I have the picture of Captain Picard from Star Trek, who was assimilated by the Borgs. The Borgs is a race of cyborgs in the universe. This is a science fiction movie, series actually. Well, and I'd like to argue that we already live among cyborgs. We have cyborgs among us. What's a cyborg? Well, it's basically a human with some implants, prostheses, or whatever. So we change hips, knees, I don't know, we have different prostheses, we change the eye, artificial heart, whatever. We have so many different organs that we already replace with mechanical devices. So we already have cyborgs among us. And what I'd like to say is that cyborgs are not necessarily just humans to whom you add mechanical devices. It's like in that picture for the, for example, the wounded in the in a war, or I don't know, some people may lose limbs in an accident, a farming accident or whatever. There are other kinds of cyborgs where you have actually a machine like the dog, and you add tissue to it. So imagine a machine and you add some biological cells to it. You can also create a cyborg. Is it far-fetched? No, we already created some. And there's this famous, how they call it, the roborat, or rat robot, or something like that. So they take cells from the rat brain and they add it to this robot. So that this robot doesn't have a chip, doesn't have a computer. The computer is a collection of cells from the rat brain. And the robot manages to, well, they can control with these cells the robot to find ways to get out of a box, for example, like a very simple maze. The interesting thing with the experiment that they did with this rat robot is the fact that the cells don't live very long, and they have to replace them with cells of another rat. And they noticed that the behavior of the robot is different. This is very interesting and very deep. So here you have the same robot. You can create another one, but you put different cells, and they have different identity, different behavior, different personality. This is a very interesting phenomenon. So you have machines that are different even though you do them with a cookie cutter. Okay. So I think we'll be more and more cyborgs like that. And some because they don't have the choice, they had an accident, but some because they choose to become cyborgs. So yeah, I'll give you some examples. I mentioned about the future that is already here. You can have an implant, a cochlear implant to hear for those who have problems hearing. Well, the implant is a tiny device that is put behind here and goes inside in the bone. It's very easy to add to it a wireless communication system, like this is wireless. And you can give it an address, an IP address. With IPv6 now we can have billions of these IP addresses. So if you have an IP address, it can communicate with the internet. And we also have the technology to talk to a cell phone. I can talk to a cell phone, okay, and I can give commands. For example, I can tell my cell phone, go and search online some information about a book, for example. And the commands that I send will go automatically to a search engine. The search engine will bring back a page. Well, I can put that technology in that implant, and the implant will read to me the page. We also have the technology to read from a page with a human voice. Well, we can have it in an implant. So here you have a way to access the internet just by talking. Maybe some people, even though they hear very well, they will say, well, I'd like to have that implant. Okay, I have the money, I'll pay for it, I'll have it. So it looks science fiction, but it's already here. The technology is already here. And here's another very fascinating device that was created at ETH Zurich. This is a chip that is put on the retina of blind people. And the chip communicates with the neurons on the retina and goes directly to the optical nerve and goes to the brain. And you can send signals, and the the blind person can see. Well, that chip wirelessly communicates with a camera that is put on glasses that you can wear, normal glasses. There are cameras, one on the left, one on the right. And the cameras will send a signal to that chip, and today blind people can see. Well, the reality is that the technology today, what they can see is very pixelized. Okay, so they see a limited number of colors. I don't remember exactly how many, but large pixels, which is amazing because in the beginning they didn't see anything. Now they see some shapes. But what this reminds us of is the early digital cameras. The early digital cameras had also pixelized images. So very rapidly, in a matter of few years, these chips will be so sophisticated that somebody with an implant like this can see with very high resolution. Not only that, they can zoom in and zoom out. They can read a newspaper 100 meters away. I can't do that with my normal eye. So I may choose, and I can tell you today, yes, if 1 million people do that implant and they have no problem, I will choose to have that implant too. Because I'd like to be able to see from 100 meters and read the newspaper and zoom in and zoom out and maybe even store some of these images that I saw before. Something I can't do today. So this is just to say that we'll have more and more of these cyborgs by choice. Okay. And well, you've seen some of these. As I said, the imagination of Hollywood people run wild and they come up with many ideas. And this phenomenon actually is not new. Very few people remember the movie Colossus. Colossus came in 1969. It tells the story of this computer. So 1969, that was the early days of computers. 1969, actually, the ARPANET just came into being. ARPANET is what became the internet later on. So in this movie, they talk about this computer that learns and learns to learn, actually. And at the end, the computer learns. It's called Colossus. It learns all what humans know, and they put it in connection with another computer in Russia. Of course, it was during the Cold War. And the interesting thing is that the first computer started teaching the second computer. And the second computer now learned all the knowledge of the human beings, and they conspired together against the humans. Of course, the typical apocalyptic scenario. And the whole thing is how humans will outwit these computers in order to stop them from doing what they have to do. The movie is a terrible movie, actually, but I like the story behind it. One of the reasons why it's terrible, it's because how they predicted how the computer, I mean, their view of what the computers will become was very limited. And that's also the argument that I have. We are limited in what we can imagine that the future will be from tomorrow. Okay, so what is artificial intelligence? I'll go through some definitions that I took from online. This one is from the UNESCO Education. Artificial intelligence is a set of tools that exhibit human intelligence and behavior, including self-learning robots, expert systems, voice recognition, natural and automated translation. So they took some examples. And I'll cover, for example, expert system either today or next time. Here's a definition from Wikipedia. So it's the branch of computer science dealing with reproduction or mimicking, so trying to do the same thing, mimicking human-level thought in computers, the essential quality of a machine which thinks in a manner similar to or on the same general level as human beings. The mimicking here is very important because indeed in many of these programs that we call artificial intelligence, it's not really intelligence, we are trying to copy what we think or what we understand how how humans actually behave. We still don't know how the brain functions and how we think, so we try to copy that artificially from the outside. WordNet Web, which is also a collection of different concepts in the language, they define artificial intelligence as the branch of computer science that deals with writing computer programs that can solve problems creatively. So they're just a set of programs that are written by humans. Okay, so for me, what is important in intelligence, and I'll try to define intelligence later on, is the ability to reason, think, and plan. You have a problem, you plan for it. And the ability to solve problems. Think abstractly, so we create a model and we think out of that model. And we can comprehend complex ideas, and we can learn quickly. So these are the factors that makes us, well, intelligent. One person who was part of the pioneers who started this whole field, and I'll talk about it later on, is Marvin Minsky, and he defined artificial intelligence as the science of making machines do things that would require intelligence if done by humans, by man. Okay. The research, the field, artificial intelligence, actually has two goals. The first goal is obvious. I'm trying to devise means to make these computers more useful and appear intelligent, so act more intelligently. The second goal, and often we forget it, is to understand how we are intelligent. What is our intelligence? How does the brain function? And that's why it's not just computer scientists that are interested in AI. You have people in psychology, philosophy, linguistics, whatever, who are also interested in AI. Okay. Because by trying to mimic that, we end up understanding more and more how we function. Okay. So here's my roadmap. I will talk more today about artificial intelligence, and if we have time, expert systems, otherwise I'll leave it for the next time. And then in the second part, so as Dr. Solez mentioned, I'll have 4 presentations, but they're all in these 3 big parts. So in the second part, I'll talk about machine learning and data mining. And in the third part, I will talk about applications. So we'll see what is possible, what is not possible, what is fiction and what is reality. And then we'll talk about the risks, so the negative side, and the potential, the positive side. Okay? So artificial intelligence, the term, was created by, well, it's attributed to John McCarthy, who died recently. He died the 24th of October, 2011. So 3 months ago, or 2 months ago. So he was one of the organizers of a conference that lasted a few weeks, actually, where they invited many people who are in computer science and philosophy and other fields to talk about what he named artificial intelligence. So intelligence that was not natural but artificial. And he wrote this proposal for the Dartmouth Conference in 1956. And in that proposal, he talks about the study is to proceed, so this is the study within the conference, as to proceed on the basis of the conjecture that every aspect of learning and any other feature of intelligence can be, in principle, be so precisely described that a machine can be made to simulate it. So the idea is that our intelligence, you can break it down into small pieces, how we function and how we solve problems and how we learn and so forth. You can break it down into small pieces that can be replicated by machines. And if we can do that, then the machines can become intelligent. By the way, that same idea was what people attacked later on to criticize and try to demonstrate that, well, artificial intelligence will never reach the level of the human intelligence. So it's the study of intelligent behavior and the attempt to find ways in which such behavior could be engineered in any type of artifact, so a machine, a computer in particular. Today, thanks to these guys who started the first wave of machine learning and AI, artificial intelligence, well, this was in 1956, so we're talking about half a century. The field is mature enough, and matured actually quite a long time ago, that all universities teaching computer science have the AI as one of the major components of the program. Okay. So it's, and Wikipedia mentions that it's a branch of computer science that deals with intelligent behavior, learning and adaptation in machines. So it's a branch of computer science that is actually taught in every single university today. So that is artificial intelligence. But before we go in deeper with artificial intelligence, let's look at what is our intelligence. How do we define it? Okay. And again, this is my definition. It's the capacity of looking at the environment we're in, interpret it, okay, understand it, and then adapt to it. Okay. It's the ability to learn from past experience in the environment we're in. And profit from these experiences to solve new problems. So I take the example of, I don't remember where I've seen this, but if you put a human being in a room and you have some reward attached to the ceiling, and that human being cannot reach it, but in the room somewhere else there's a chair, and that chair is meant to sit on it, well, the human being will very likely take that chair, move it just underneath that reward, stand on it, and grab that reward. If you put monkeys in a room with bananas hanging from the ceiling, and somewhere else in the room there are boxes or a chair or whatever, they may not think about taking that chair and put it underneath the bananas to reach the bananas. They will just jump to try to reach it. But they're intelligent enough that if you show them, if you show them how you take that box, put it underneath, and then you reach it, they will learn from that. Okay. But if you move the box that they use and replace it with the chair, they will not make the analogy, oh, the chair that can be used like the box. Okay. And that illustrates what intelligence means. I'm using my experience from the past to solve the problem. The problem is to reach this reward. Okay. So to summarize, is basically I'm interpreting my environment, I learn from that, and I adapt to the environment when the environment changes. And so I understand my new environment to solve the problem of this new environment. Okay. So what is computational intelligence rather than artificial intelligence? It's the same thing, they're synonyms, but it's intelligence that I'm computing. Okay. Computational intelligence, these are programs, so it's written programs, that analyze and interpret data. That's the environment. I'm reading data. So I will analyze that data, interpret it, and learn from it. From that observation, I will learn some model. I will represent it somehow. And then later I will use that model. If the situation changes, I will use that model to do some analogy, and I'll solve the new problem in the new environment. Okay. That is what we call machine learning, and I'll cover that in part 2. Okay, how the machine learns. It's not that trivial. There are many problems. And that's why many people in AI who are skeptical about this idea of singularity. But I'm convinced that even if they're skeptical, it means they're skeptical that it'll happen during their own lifetime. But it will happen someday. Many people who are very skeptical try to show the complexity of the human being, but eventually you will understand that complexity of the human being. You will try to reproduce it in machines. Like, for example, we don't know how today we memorize things. How come when I walk outside and I smell something, ooh, this reminds me of my grandmother's cooking, and I haven't smelled that for 20 years, and it comes in a fraction of a second. How do we do that? We have no clue. So the day we understand that, I can guarantee you that the way computers will store information and retrieve it will change completely. Okay. So there are problems. Human intelligence is not completely understood. We still don't know how it works, but we'll get there one day, step by step. The other problem is that we cannot comprehend what is an intelligence that is superior to us. So how can we build something that is superior to us? We have to understand it in order to build it, unless we stumble on that by accident or something, or with the help of machines that are as intelligent as us, someone will find a way. But it'll happen. But for that to happen, it'll take a while. And that's why I'm skeptical that it'll be in 21st century, but it'll happen. There's also the notion of weak AI and strong AI. Weak AI is what we've been doing so far. Weak AI is when you simulate the human being. You try to mimic that human being. The human being, their actions, and the ideas that we have, we all program them, we represent them somehow in code. Okay? Strong AI is the true artificial intelligence. It's when the machine makes its own decisions and surpasses the human intelligence. So now the question of singularity is, when will we reach this strong AI? Okay. There's also the notion of defining what is intelligence, and deciding whether the machine is intelligent or not. Actually, even among us, the humans, sometimes say this person is intelligent or smart, but it's based on what? Because that person remembered the year that John F. Kennedy was assassinated or whatever. I mean, because we remember some facts, we're intelligent. Unfortunately, that is commonly used as a way of determining if somebody is smart or not. But people are also talking about now ways of identifying whether a machine or a program is intelligent. And let's think about it for a moment. If we are intelligent, then if a machine acts like us, then that machine should be intelligent. So this is what we call acting humanely, like a human. And that led to the design of tests to test whether a machine is intelligent or not. In the 50s, in 1950, Turing wrote a book. This is before the Dartmouth conference in 1956, so before the term artificial intelligence existed. And in his book he defined, well, he talked about what is an intelligent machine and so forth. And he devised a test by which we could decide if a machine is intelligent or not. And this is called the Turing test today. And the test is relatively simple. You have a person, a human being, with a terminal talking to two entities. Let's call them entities. The first one is a machine, the other one is a human being, and both are communicating with this first human being via this terminal. And if the first human being cannot distinguish where's the machine and where's the human, then that machine is intelligent enough to disguise itself as a human being. Okay? So he predicted, Turing predicted by the year 2000, so 50 years after, half a century after he wrote this, he predicted that a machine would be able to fool a person that it is a machine with, well, it has 30% chance to fool a person for at least 5 minutes. So for 5 minutes, a person would not be able to distinguish whether it's a machine or a human. I can tell you this didn't happen. Okay, we know immediately that we're dealing with a machine, not a computer, not a human being. In his book, he also suggested many of the subfields of AI that exist today, like the idea of representing knowledge, the idea of reasoning, the idea of understanding language, the language that we use. There's so many subtleties in the language. The idea of learning, all these subfields exist today that were suggested by Turing in his book. So let's look at some examples. These are called chatbots. Many people build these chatbots. You go on the computer, some of them are web-based, so you go on the web, there's a URL, you access, and you're talking to a machine. Let's see some of these dialogues. I went myself and I started talking with these, and I captured the dialogue and showed you here some examples. This is Jabberwocky. It won the 3rd place in a prize. So their prizes, they compete. These chatterbots are competing, and every year they get these awards. So this one is good, very good actually, compared to others, but I'll show you here's the dialogue. It's obvious that it's completely silly. So as soon as I connected, it asked me, what is your name? And I pretended to be Fred. So I put Fred, and it accused me that it wasn't. And in the beginning, I said, wow, how did it know that I'm not Fred? And he said that I was a liar. And I asked, why do you say that I'm a liar? And the machine said, well, because I'm a good liar, but that's not reason, it's not logical. So I tried to push that way, and it pretended to be God, okay? And I asked, do you have a temple? And it said, no, that's fine, I don't have a temple. So you are God with a small g, because it wrote God with a small g. And it changed completely, I'm small g. So it didn't know exactly the kind of path I was taking. It's kind of random, creating random sentences. So when it's walled somehow, it's blocked, it doesn't go where to go, it generates another sentence to take me somewhere else. So they're canned questions that this machine has. It's not that smart. So here's another one that is also famous, Alice. So I connect to it and says, I'm Alice. And I asked it, where are you? Immediately answered, I'm in Auckland, California. So it looked good. And it asked me the same question back, where are you? I said, in Canada. Tell me a little bit more about the life in Canada. I said, it's cold. So it answered, I'm warm here. So it looks intelligent because there's a relationship between warm and cold. And then I asked something completely different. I said, where is the best Chinese restaurant? And I was expecting it to ask me, are you thinking about Auckland, California, or where you are? Okay. But it was completely lost. I think it's a tie. I said, okay, tie, meaning 2 restaurants are tie. So why is it a tie? And then it went completely berserk. Why do I exist? So you can see that it didn't know how to answer, and it chose another sentence completely irrelevant. Okay, and then it talked about clapping with one hand and whatever. So we're far, far away from creating a machine that can fool me that it's a human being. Yet we achieved quite a bit. Okay, AI achieved tremendous successes. In '97, Deep Blue won a 6-game match with Garry Kasparov. We had 2 wins and against 1 with 3 draws. That was phenomenal. But if you know what the machine was able to do, then you understand actually it's not a big deal. Why it's not a big deal? Because if you know how Deep Blue was searching the humongous search space and how the humans are searching that space, it's completely different. We're mimicking the result, we're not mimicking the way it's done. We still don't know, and even if you ask Garry Kasparov how you decide, how do you trim the cases that are not good and go directly to the winning path, he wouldn't know how to answer that question. He just knows how to do it, that's it, with experience. Deep Blue looks at all the possibilities. Given a position on the board, they look at all the possibilities, and then they trim, they cut. And to do that, they have to have tremendous computing power. And that's what Deep Blue was all about. And that's what IBM was trying to do, is to showcase their technology that they can do it very fast. Okay. Nevertheless, Chinook here at U of A in '94 won the World Man-Machine Championship. This is Guinness records, so it's in the Guinness Book of Records. First time that a machine indeed participated in a competition, in a championship, with elimination and so forth until it reached the final. As opposed to Deep Blue that, well, it was a match that was organized. It wasn't a championship. And in 2007, the game checker was solved. Solved, it means give me any position, I'll tell you immediately if I'll win or I'll draw, and I can't lose. Okay, and I can see all the possibilities, so it's solved. This is thanks to Jonathan Schaefer and his team. That is phenomenal as well, but it took many years. Actually, it took the team 18 years working on this regularly, every day. And they solved this humongous search space 5 times 10 to the power of 20. It's huge. A human being does not do that. Okay? We don't do that when you play checker. You all heard of Jeopardy and Watson. That was a huge success as well. So the Watson, this is done by the T.G. Watson Lab, IBM in New York, and they build this machine that stores a lot of information. It's completely disconnected from the web when it's answering these questions. Don't think that it's actually checking on the web. However, it stored all that information already on a local disk. So it doesn't have to go to the web. Okay. But you still have to understand the question. You have to look at all the possibilities, the interpretations of that question, and then all the possible answers, and in a fraction of a second, get the answer. It's a big challenge, okay? And they succeeded in beating the best humans. So it looks from outside indeed very intelligent, but is it? Is it as intelligent as a human? I'm not sure. There are other achievements worth mentioning. The challenge No Hands Across America. So this is a car that can drive without a driver and decides on its own when to stop, when to accelerate, when to turn, when to avoid an obstacle, and so forth. It may seem easy in a closed circuit, but this is on the streets that everybody uses. So they use different sensors, they use cameras and so forth, and they process all this data real time and make those decisions. Okay. There is actually a challenge organized by DARPA. They organized it many years, in 2004 till 2007. The first one was in the desert outside, and the second one was actually an urban challenge with streets and pedestrians and so forth. And you have many universities participating with their teams. And it's definitely an incredible feat, what they achieved, using AI to make the car drive without a driver. Okay. Actually, there's many demonstrations or proofs that if all cars had this kind of AI, we wouldn't have these accidents, and we wouldn't have actually traffic jams. It'll be fluid. But to change all the cars like this will take forever. And there's fun also driving in your own car. So here's the short, in brief, the history of AI. So as I mentioned, in 1950, we have the book of Turing that talks about what intelligence in an intelligent machine would look like and what we should do for it. In 1956, we had this meeting, this conference at Dartmouth, where the term artificial intelligence was created and adopted, and it became a field. From immediately after, actually, this excited many people, so you have many researchers jumping into this field, and governments funded a lot of this research. So worldwide, you had very interesting research because people were very optimistic. They thought, indeed, that in very little, they will create these fantastic programs. In '74, there were many people starting to criticize AI, and they said, this is utopia. You will never reach that. The most famous person who was criticizing this is a philosopher. He's a professor in philosophy at Berkeley, Dreyfus, and he wrote a book called What Machines Cannot Do. Okay, and that created the first, what we call the first AI winter. People abandoned AI completely. They said, well, this was indeed utopia, let's go back to what we used to do. Parallel to AI, there's a group of people who are working on expert systems. And expert systems wasn't really part of AI at that time. It was parallel to it. And the idea was to, and I'll talk about it next time, the idea is you have a human expert, and that human expert is going for retirement. How do I capture that expertise and keep it in my company? I can ask that expert to train new people, but this expert is an expert in the field, not necessarily expert in teaching it, and maybe he or she doesn't have the time to teach. Okay. So how do I capture that information? So the idea was to build programs. Once I capture that expertise, I put it in the program, and then the program becomes either a machine to train the new generation or a machine that is used as a decision support system for the non-experts to become experts. Okay. And the expert systems became very, very popular because they were successful. They saved a lot of money to many companies. And that revived AI. So people were saying, look, I'm building this machine that is intelligent because it's as intelligent as the expert, and I don't have other experts. And so there was a revival of AI. And in Japan in the 80s, they started this fifth generation computers. And that scared many people. In the 80s, Japan had a lot of money, a lot of cash. So that's why they invested in this project. Many other countries, the UK and the US in particular, when they saw Japan investing in this project, building so the Prolog machines and Lisp machines, they said, okay, we have to invest as well. The Japanese, probably they know something that we missed, we didn't know. So they started investing. And, but 7 years later, these Lisp is actually a programming language for representing some knowledge and writing these AI programs. They build machines that are specifically for Lisp, and there was a collapse in the market of Lisp machines, and that created the second AI winter. It's only in the 90s, and it's because there's some enthusiasts who kept on working on AI, but because of the lack of funding, they worked on subfields. They didn't take this grand project working on AI in general. They took subfields. Their subfields succeeded, and that brought interest in AI again. Okay, and many of these successes are due to the fact that now computers are way faster. Things that we couldn't do yesterday because the machines were taking too long, like days, now they can do them in a second. Okay, so the increase of processing power played a huge role in the success of AI and the return of AI, because many of these AI programs need a lot of processing power. Okay. So this is what we call the Moore's law. So Moore's law says that every 2 years, the number of processors the transistors that I could put doubles. Actually, the law also applies to disks, the capacity that I can store. And you can see in that curve how fast that goes. It's exponential. Okay. So why is this computational intelligence, or AI, important? It's important not just as a philosophical topic, if you wish, but it plays a huge role in many other subfields. It's helping, that's why I'm saying it's making computers more useful. It's helping many other fields. You can better use the information that you're collecting, and thanks to Moore's law, we have more disks, so we are collecting more information. So it makes these machines now more efficient and more effective. And it enhances the productivity, like I gave the example of expert systems. And in particular, when our programs or our machines or our application has to adapt when things change. Okay, the market changes, the environment changes. Imagine the robot you send on Mars. I've never been to Mars. I don't know how the environment is. I'll learn based on the environment that I simulate on Earth, and then when I send it there, I want it to adapt to the reality. Okay? So there are many examples like that. And as I said in the beginning, AI, the research in AI is also important to understand how we humans function, how we think. Okay. So here are some of the I said the AI was divided into pieces. Here are some of the subfields that are actually important in the whole picture. There's knowledge representation. When I learn something, how do I represent it in the machine so I can use it later on? How do I reason and solve problems? There's planning. I need to go to that building. I have to plan, how do I get there? There are different obstacles, different constraints. Natural language processing, understanding the language, whether it's written or spoken. Perception, when I see an image or I see something here, like the camera that is on that car that is driving without a driver. Something is moving. Is it a pedestrian? Is it just a plastic bag, or is it whatever? That's part of vision. There's the notion of learning. So I'm learning from experience and then use it later on. Motion and manipulating things. I need also intelligence for that. Emotion and creativity. So we humans, we are very creative. We create things, artistic things, whether it's music, painting, writing poetry, or even building machines. There's an art in building machines too.
Thank you, Dr. Zaiane, for your talk. I found the concept of sort of going back to defining what intelligence is just in humans. So I'm wondering, the experiment you talked about with the little machines and the rat cells that were put on that. So what's the idea about sort of what's the minimum biological unit of intelligence? Is it contained, can a cell contain intelligence? Is it an organ? Can you elaborate on that a little bit?
Well, it's a very good question. Right now, the only experiment that I know of is this rat robot. They tried similar experiments also with brain cells on other kinds of robots, not just the rat. What is the biological unit they use? They use cells, according to what I read. I don't know the details exactly. And only brain cells. And basically, they connected them together and made them into a circuit that has units that fire or not fire, because that's what you can do with the neuron that they took from the brains. Is it just at the cell level, or they took tissue and connected it somehow? I don't know the details.
Okay. Richard? Yeah.
I think you were being a little unfair on the monkey, because most humans have some idea of what a chair is for, even if they don't use it for an official purpose. But there is an experiment whereby they took a 1 foot long clear plastic tube with a solid bottom and stuck it firmly to the wall at about waist height, and put a shell peanut, with the shell at the bottom of the tube, and a pitcher of water on the floor, and introduced a number of 6-year-old children one by one to this problem of how to get the peanut. Not one of them solved this problem, but a bonobo, faced with the same problem, within a few minutes realized that if he poured water into the tube, the peanut would float, and he had made the peanut. So I think that we tend to aggrandize ourselves sometimes by making comparisons that aren't necessarily valid. Mm-hmm. And I just was going to ask you, do you think that people in general are becoming more intelligent as time goes by, or less intelligent, or maybe we're just as intelligent now as we were 10,000 years ago?
If you take a baby that was born at the time of Alexander the Great and bring that baby here, that baby will go to school like us and will grow up to be a person exactly like us, as intelligent as us. So intelligence, maybe if you take now a person who went through university here today and a person who lived in the Middle Ages in Europe, put them one next to the other, one will look more intelligent than the other, obviously. But it's not because of the capacity of their brains. It has to do with the experience they went through. So the kids who could not get that peanut, it's because they didn't have enough experience to create that analogy. But if you take an adult who went through enough experience, who has enough experience, would solve that problem with more ease. So it's not a question of intelligence, it's a question, and capacity. Actually, the kids have more capacity than us because they have more neurons than we do. It's a question of recording that experience and use it afterwards.
Well then, we just move this over to talk about civilizations and cultures. They come and go in the world. And some of them go because they're destroyed from the outside. The Inca Empire was done in by the Spanish conquistadors. Some of these cultures disappear for reasons that we aren't quite sure. But the ones that people have looked at, the Anasazi, the Easter Islanders, perhaps the Maya in the Yucatan, almost certainly all these people destroyed their cultures by destroying their environment. And if these people are just as smart as we are now, and they weren't able to deal with really what was quite a simple problem, is there anything to suggest that the use of AI is going to prevent us from doing the same thing?
Well, there are many people who are advocating that indeed, saying if we have intelligent machines that are more intelligent than us, those machines will prevent us from doing harm to ourselves. But some other people are saying, well, it depends how you program these machines, and like the movie Colossus, when the machine realized that, hey, the humans can pull the plug, I'd better protect myself. And since humans will kill themselves, then...
But do you think that this is the solution to our dilemma? Do you personally think that the AI is going to save us?
I think we cannot stop progress, even if you put regulations and say we cannot do this, we cannot do that. Progress will continue. Now it's up to us, I will not be here, but the next generation to decide how to use that progress.
Okay, we're out of time. Thank you very much.
Thank you.